Okay, well, I don't have to introduce, just welcome to this session. So I'm going to present this work entitled Regulatory Frameworks and Circular Water Management in Institutional Buildings in the Sudoe territory. On behalf of my colleagues from the Technical University of Madrid, Paloma, which is here today, thank you, Juan Ramon and Marta. I will follow the classical index, starting with the context, then introduction and objectives, methodology, results, and conclusions. This work is part of an ongoing Interreg European project called SUDWAMA, Sustainable Water Management, involving partners from Spain, Portugal, and France. The aim of this project is to develop and test circular water management solutions in Southern Europe, and this project is focusing on institutional buildings. We are talking about hospitals, educational facilities, administrative buildings. And why? Because we think that these buildings can act as a role model for others. The project follows an integrated three-pillar approach. Pillar 1 is about testing and validating technical solutions in pilot. We have 4 pilots, one in Madrid, other in Coimbra, San Sebastián, and Bidart. Pillar 2 is about co-creating a transnational strategy with the stakeholders. And Pillar 3 is about engaging citizens to foster social acceptance. The work I'm going to present falls under Pillar 2, and is really the basis for developing this transnational strategy. While I think the challenge is very well known, Southern Europe is increasingly facing water stress, and traditional water management is no longer enough. So the implementation of circular water models has become a priority in many countries to build resilient cities. Water reuse systems in buildings can reduce potable water demand by 30–40%. And here we are talking about reusing the water that is collected, for example, from roofs, or, for example, from showers or bathtubs. The problem is that the implementation of these systems remain very limited and mostly concentrated on isolated successful projects. Why is this happening is the objective of this research. We wanted to identify which barriers are preventing the implementation of these systems and which opportunities exist to accelerate this. We are focusing in Spain, mainly because Spain is a particularly relevant case study. It's the most arid country of Europe, and is also a leader in water reuse. We have seen this in previous presentations. But the idea is to compare the results of Spain with those obtained from Portugal and France in the future to get a wider overview of what is happening in the Sudoe region. To achieve this objective, we have followed a mixed method approach. First, we have carried out a literature and regulatory review, including scientific publication, grey literature, current and forthcoming regulation, and best practice examples. Second, we have conducted 14 semi-structured interviews with key stakeholders representing the public administration, the private sector, the academia, and the civil society. Each of these interviews lasted 1 hour almost and covered 30 questions related to the current situation, variants, opportunities, and future perspectives. And we are now in phase 3. We are in the process of analyzing these interview results, doing quantitative coding, and we are also in the process of validating the results. We are doing a survey and using quantitative analysis. Okay, looking at the results, we have seen that stakeholders broadly perceive water reuse in buildings as highly necessary, particularly in water-stressed regions like the Mediterranean arc. But they see this tool or this approach as a complement, mainly as part of broader water resilience strategies. Regarding the types of water, stakeholders seen that grey water is the most promising water source. Grey water comes from showers, the bathtubs, also the sinks, and it is perceived as a very reliable water source because of its continuous availability. It is also relatively easy to treat, easy to manage in situ, in buildings, and it offers great potential for non-potable users, for example, for toilet flushes, for landscape irrigation, and for cleaning. Looking at the type of buildings, stakeholders also perceive that sport and educational facilities are the most suitable demonstration sites because of its high water demand and high visibility. And here, this donut chart on the right-hand side of the slide shows the most critical dimension according to stakeholder views. Here we can see that the most critical domain is regulatory, then economic, and then social acceptance. And also innovation and knowledge. We have also, I cannot see it, but we have environmental. All these issues are less limiting. Okay, and why the regulatory framework is the main limiting factor? This is a question that we wanted to answer more in depth. We have seen that Spain has a very strong regulatory framework for water reuse, including a recently adopted royal decree on reclaimed water. The problem is that this regulatory framework is mainly focused on centralized systems linked to wastewater treatment plants. So building scale solutions remain unregulated. We have a technical building code that allows the installation of separate networks for grey water and rainwater, but the problem is that this is not mandatory. And this code also offers very limited guidance for the installation of these systems. So in practice, the engineers follow the European technical standards, the UNE rules, to design and install these water reuse systems. And they also rely on international sustainability certifications like BREEAM and LEED to get recognition. Looking at the different types of waters, we see that black water reuse falls under the royal decree. So this is very complex and costly to implement. In reality, this is unfeasible at the building scale. Grey water and rainwater reuse is feasible, but the problem is that we don't have a dedicated national legislation. So practitioners rely on regional or local legislation that can be very different from one place to another. And also they rely on these technical standards and certifications that are voluntary. They are not mandatory. This is the problem. Okay, this slide summarizes the key barriers and opportunities identified by the stakeholders across the different domains. We see that the stakeholders have identified several barriers apart from the regulatory ones. From the economic perspective, we see that high initial investment cost and the low price of potable water make that these types of water reuse systems can be very little justified financially. On the social side, a stakeholder pointed to low motivation and a limited awareness of the real benefits that these systems offer. No. Don't want to work. Oh. No. Go back. One more. One more. One more. I have to go to the innovation. Here. Okay. In the innovation and knowledge domain, main barriers are the lack of data. One more. The lack of data And the lack of trained professionals in the technical and operational dimension, infrastructure constraints, is frequently mentioned. And here, this is very important because in existing buildings, it's very difficult to install of this type of water reuse system. And in the environmental dimension, we have seen limited evidence on environmental impact, which is linked also with the social dimension. But we have a window of hope. Stakeholders also identify several key opportunities. We see that the growing policy attention to water reuse and increased environmental awareness that can encourage wider uptake. We see also that stakeholders highlighted that these reuse systems offer a potential for reduced potable water demand and in consequence to save cost on water bills. Also, we have successful projects that can be used for demonstration and mature and reliable technologies that can make implementation really feasible. Looking ahead, the majority of stakeholders see that a widespread adoption is still 15 years away. And looking at future recommendations, stakeholders emphasize the importance of demonstration project, communication activities, training, but the key trigger is really the technical building code. They think that including as mandatory the fact that the installation of this network, of separate network, are included in this code, this can make really the difference. Until then, growth will be geographically uneven and also very limited. And just finally, some key messages. Spain has a strong framework for centralized water reuse, but not for building scale solutions. Second, the regulatory gap is the main obstacle, not the technology. We need to move from incentive-based to obligation-based policy approaches. Current economic conditions discourage investment. We need more targeted incentives and more innovative financial mechanisms. Social acceptance is not bad. We don't have social rejection here in Spain, but can be improved through demonstration projects, capacity building, and communication activities. And finally, public leadership is essential to drive this transition. The public sector is important, not only as regulators, but also as buyers of this type of systems. And thank you very much.